see separateness and how can we experience oneness? And we're so magnetized by the physical world, aren't we? It's so real to us. And then we get into metaphysics, right? We get into metaphysics, and this month we're looking at this idea of the M&Ms, right? M&Ms, M&Ms, and that's metaphysics and mastery and manifestation, right? So we look at this idea of metaphysics, and the teaching of metaphysics is teaching us to look beyond the physical, right? And to awaken to a reality that is spiritual, right? And as we're spiritually awakening, we become something, some veil becomes pulled away from our inner knowing so that we begin to comprehend and see things in a new way, right? And so as this spiritual awakening is taking place in all of us, we are learning, we're not learning, we are having new perceptions and beginning to have new perceptions of a spiritualized reality. And in metaphysics, we practice and learn skills and awareness that we might open up even more to that reality and begin to see it and operate from that reality. Okay, let me break that down. In other words, we begin to see that there is cause and a spiritual realm that takes place before the physical realm, right? Mm-hmm. We think and, we're going to create a reality, and so the inner world happens first, and then we have the material reality, right? So first there's causation, a spiritual idea, and then there's the physical reality, right? So this idea that in metaphysics that there is a spiritual reality and then it shows up in a material reality. In other words, there's thought or consciousness and then there's form, right? So in this teaching, as it were, of metaphysics, we learn that things operate that way and how we can play with it. Now let's look, I just wanted to say this and we'll go back to something else. This song. There's no heaven, where is it? Imagine there's no heaven, it's easy if you try, no hell below us, above us only sky. And as I'm hearing it, like, in a spiritual reality, how true is that? In a spiritual reality, there's no heaven, there's no hell, there's no up, there's no down, it's all one, right? In a spiritual reality, it's no physical, what did it say? It's, no religion and no possessions, and I wonder if you can, no need or greed for hunger or brotherhood of man. In other words, that speaks to this spiritual reality that isn't physical possessions. It isn't a physical reality. It's a spiritual reality. In a spiritual reality, everything is whole and everything is perfect and everything is complete. And then here we are on earth trying to remember the wholeness of it all. Does anyone have a challenge with that like I do? Right? I'm the only one, right? That has a little bit of a challenge with, like, knowing that there's this spiritual reality and it's operating perfectly at every moment. It's divine perfection, wholeness, and love. And then there's all the baggage that we have carried through all of our beliefs, and we got mom and dad saying, oh, that's communism, or whatever the beliefs come along, right? That get in the way of this operation, right? So how then can we exist and operate more consciously and be a vehicle that starts to manifest this heaven on earth consciousness? And isn't that what we're here doing? Mm-hmm. So look at your neighbor and say, way to go, you're here learning how to do that. Way to go. That's right. Okay, so we got that out. We know here we are operating in the spiritual reality. We're looking at this mastery idea, metaphysics and mastery, and looking at metaphysics all month and this principle. And today we're looking at the idea of it's not personal. Okay? Looking at the idea and understanding these universal laws. Last week we talked about mind your own business. We talked about that universal law. There's a law of mind that is operating, this infinite mind that is operating upon all thought and all consciousness, and it's operating. And we're learning that it's not really personal. That means it's going to work for everybody the same. Like, there is a law that's operating for everyone the same, and what we are learning to do is how is it that we can begin to operate more intelligently. So Ernest Holmes tells us that the law is one of freedom, or it is a law of bondage, right? And how we work with it, the way we grow intelligently to work with it intelligently, is how we are able to use it in our life. How we want to use it a little bit more intelligently. Mm-hmm. So the law works for all alike. And we understand that if a person is using the law of mathematics and they're adding 2 and 2 together, they get what? 4. And does it matter if you're doing it or you're doing it? It's still 4, right? It doesn't matter who's doing it. We know that if somebody goes over to turn the light switch on, there's a law, because there's a connectedness of electricity, that whoever goes and turns the light switch on, what's going to happen? It's going to go on. Now, the light switch doesn't say, Daniel, you're a bad boy today. I'm not coming on for you. It does not do that. If it's hooked up, it's turning on. So the impersonalness of this law, as we begin to understand that starts to take away the fantasy that says, I really like something different to happen into my life, and so I will make up something in order for something different to happen. I really want to have more money in my life, and I've never had it before, and I really believe that I don't deserve it, but one day it'll show up. When we start to wake up intelligently to this idea that it is operating, that means I got to start taking some responsibility and start taking personal responsibility to grow my consciousness in order to be one that it has a different experience, right? Mm-hmm. All right, now let's look first of all what Ernest Holmes, we're talking about Ernest Holmes all month, aren't we? Yeah. Say I am. I am. He says this, the person who gets the best results is the one who realizes the impersonality of mind, the absoluteness of it, and then who can project it into the clearest concepts. So the person who gets the best results is the one that understands it. Now, for example, if you were a chef, right? If you were a chef and you were a cook, and you knew how to cook, you would get a better result. Correct? Yeah. Now, if you were a chef and you boiled water, and you knew what result you would get with a certain temperature of water, right? Then you would know what to do with that water in order to get the result you wanted, correct? Right. That's right. And so the more we learn about this, the better result we are able to get in our life, all right? All right, so let's look at 4 stages of human consciousness that we can begin to align with so that we can get a better result. Would you like to? Yeah. So it's the same for all of us, okay? No, I'm not different than you. There's these stages of consciousness. And it's spoken about in the New Testament as Jesus laid down this teaching of consciousness. Would you like to hear it? Yeah. You've all heard it before, okay? It's called the parable of the sower. You know the parable of the sower? When Jesus is talking about this idea of the farmer planting a seed, okay? The farmer planting a seed and then getting a harvest. Now that's the perfect metaphor, I think, for planting a seed in our own life, planting a seed and being able to get it to manifest. Does anybody ever had a seed thought come in, you really excite you and you want to have it manifest in your life? Yeah. Right? So this seed thought comes in, and we could say it this way, that when I'm aligning with my higher self, divinely inspired, and I get this great idea that wants to be birthed in me, right? Anybody ever had a good idea? It's exciting, you like it, maybe it's for good health or relationship or love or, greater expression. We all have that, hopefully, right? When we allow it to come forth. Now, this is the place where many times the seed thought gets lost and never takes root, right? So let's look at the 4 stages of consciousness that we each have in different times to see which might be better. So the teaching goes that the farmer scattered the seed. Let me read it. The farmer went out to sow his seed, okay? And as he was scattering the seed, some fell upon the path where the birds ate it. So it's like the hard path, okay? And then some fell in rocky places where it did not have much soil. And it sprang up quickly because there was a little bit of soil, but as soon as the sun came out, it scorched it and it went away. And then other seed fell amongst dirt, but the dirt had a lot of thorns in it. And so as it started to grow, then the thorns would also grow and choke the plants, right? And still there were other seeds that fell upon good soil where it was rich and deep, and it produced a thought, it produced a crop. So these are the 4 stages. So we first look about the seed fell upon the path. There was no soil, it was path. That's like hard-headed, hard mind. Not letting a new idea in, not letting it come in at all, just closed down. Communism. No religion. Right? Anybody know that? Okay, so we have those places in us. When we're on the spiritual path, our invitation is to be curious about what's inside here. Just be curious, not judge ourselves, but curious. It's quite an interesting committee we got going on in there, right? So there's part of us that's hard-headed and closed and will not hear anything and won't be open, and we already got all of our set rules and ideas, and we set our framework, and we're hard-headed, okay? Does that make a great place for new ideas? Not really. So the next one is the shallow. What did I say? Rocky, thank you. So it's the rocky place, and that is shallow earth, but lots of rocks, and the seed goes into that. And that really represents that place in us that can get excited and emotional about an idea, but we're good for about a day. Okay? We are kind of just go with the next thing, because we got the shallow aspect to consciousness. It says, well, that was great then, but now I'm on to the next YouTube video, and I got about a 2-minute span, and then I'm on the next YouTube video, and then I got a 2-minute span, then I'm on the next YouTube video, and then I'm all excited, and then I'm depressed, and then I'm excited, and then I'm depressed, and God, what am I doing? Right? That's a shallow place. We got a lot of rocks in us, right? How many can relate? Yeah, right? And so this is where we first start to think, I want to learn more about spiritual awakening and consciousness, but we still have a little more developing to do. So then the next stage on this growing this consciousness that manifests is the thorny stage. Now in this stage, everybody knows the farmer needs to keep the fields clean, right? And there's just as important as planting the seed is keeping the dirt clean. And just as much as planting the seed and learning and having a great idea is to clear the consciousness. Did you know you have thorns? But there's no rose without a thorn, right? We all do. We all have thorns. That's why we're here. We are here to pull up those thorns and to reveal this divine magnificence that's underneath that. And so we want to be awake, and we want to be aware to when those thorns show themselves so that we can gently love them up and release them, right? Because when we understand the impersonal nature of the law, the beautiful freedom about this knowledge is that we know that we're going to keep pulling up those thorns. We're going to keep clearing this soil, and we see a different result. Because the law says so. And the more we practice it, the more we know it, and the deeper our belief comes. The deeper our belief comes that we can always, I got to go back to the truth, because when I go back to the truth, I'm going to see the healing, I'm going to see the forgiveness, I'm going to see the love. I got to go back to the truth, because I know that there is a universal law that is operating upon my thought and upon my word, and I can depend on that. And when I come back into consciousness and into truth, I can declare that truth and know that the law receives that word and acts upon it. It must. So that work of clearing those thorns out of the soil is an important part of what we're here doing. And I believe that that's kind of where the consciousness, that anybody that is in this room, anyone listening to these kind of teachings, are really in that stage. We're cleaning our thorns out of the soil. We're not hard-headed. We're open, right? We're open. And we've been through the shallow, we've gone beyond just the shallowness. And now we're clearing the thorns and the misbelief out, to clearing that soil, that we might be the one that can call forth and make a difference. Right? Now, the last part of that is what? The rich soil. The rich soil, that means that's the clear consciousness. Doesn't mean it's perfect. We're not perfect. But that means basically over 51% of the time we're not like a complete basket case. Just over the edge a little bit. That's good enough, right? In other words, we can grasp a higher truth. We can call it forth. We've got some power, some, authority in our lives, right? Who likes a little personal authority in your life? Yes. Absolutely. Can I have an amen? Amen? Have a little more energy, because, I get better when you get better. Amen. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. All right. So this idea of, if you don't mind, a little more diversion. Many years ago, I heard this teacher speaking, and he was from India and was quite enlightened, and he was talking about times to come in the future. This had to be at least 10 years ago. And was talking about this time that the planet is moving into and what it's going to be like in this time. And I pondered, I thought about that this morning actually, and it reminded me, and he talked about this time that would come he talked scientifically of a different magnetic field on the earth, on the planet, that there was a different magnetic field, and it was like being in a pressure cooker, and that there was so much more energy, and that the two biggest problems would be depression and suicide. Have we seen any of that? And he explained that as how I perceive it now, as turning up the heat. Turning up the heat, okay? So imagine this whole soup, this water, right? It's like here we are on this planet, here we are, and the heat is turned up. Now, what that means is we start seeing the thorns faster. Because the purpose of turning up the heat is to cook something great, right? The turning up the heat energetically is to cook something great in humanity. That humanity is like burning off the dross, burning off the stuff, so that who we are spiritually can evolve, show up, shine, and create a more perfect world. But we can't do that while we're still walking around as these egoic bodies of conflict and fight and war. But what we see all around us is that conflict and stuff. But that's not the truth. That's like the old idea, screaming out to be seen and holding on for dear life, right? Don't you see your own thorns way bigger? Your own pain, as it arises, seems really big, right? But what's happening is the heat's just turning up. And the real question begins, how are we going to be as the waters get hot? Right? How is it that we are going to be as the waters get hot? Because it doesn't matter. The universal laws are all working. Everything's working to our greater good. It's always happening. But who am I going to be in the middle of this? There was a great little story of if you take, it's like how we are in the heat, right? How we are in the heat shows up. So take a carrot and put it in boiling water. Take an egg and put it in boiling water. Take a coffee bean and put it in boiling water, all right? And so after this thing boils, you take a carrot. Now a carrot, when it went in to the boiling water, right, was hard, was strong, was hard. But when it came out of the boiling water, it was very soft, and it didn't hold up, right? It was very soft. Now we had an egg. The egg went in very soft, very vulnerable. And when it went into the boiling water, it came out really hard. Now how many of us are soft, beautiful, loving, and then we go into the heat over and over and over? We have a choice. I mean, so we can go into the boiling water, we can go in as a strong carrot, and we can go into the boiling water and just, we can go in as a soft, vulnerable egg, and we can go into our own heat of boiling water and get hard, okay? Or we can go in as a coffee bean. Now, the coffee bean goes into the water and boils and boils and boils. What does it do? It changes the water. It changes the water and makes something wonderful in the world. Coffee. I mean, there's nothing. You gotta know with me, there is nothing better than a good cup of coffee. Don't count the parents. There is. Now, so we're all in the heat. Okay? We're all in the middle of the heat, and the heat is getting turned up. And what's going to manifest for us will be up to our decision. How will we be when the heat comes up? And I find that the most healthy thing to be is curious. Curious. Interesting. Wow, this happened, and I was very curious about that. Because what happens now? Then I can begin to operate like a conscious being. Because the law is going to operate. And so, in order for me to be that coffee bean that makes a difference in the world, I've got to be able to operate upon the law in a way that is conscious, the way that is choosing, and a way that is making a difference and manifesting and choosing how to live in this lawful, perfect universe, right? Exactly. Let me share another wonderful scripture. Is that be all right? Yeah. Got a minute or so, or two, or three, or four. So this is called the parable of the popcorn. Behold, at the time of the harvest, the ears of corn did bring forth kernels which were dried and prepared for the pauper's hand. And then it was that the pauper did take all the kernels, all of which appeared alike to him, and he did apply the oil and the heat. And it came to pass that when the heat was on, some did explode with promise and magnify themselves 100-fold. Mm-hmm. And some did burst forth with whiteness, which did both gladden the eye and satisfy the taste of the pauper. And likewise, others did pop, but not so much. And lo, there were some that just did lie there. And even though the popper's heat was alike for all, they did bask in the warmth of the oil and kept everything that they had for themselves. And so it came to pass that those which had given of themselves did bring much joy and delight to many, many munchers. But those which kept of the warmth and did not burst forth were only fit to be cast into the pail and were thought of with hardness and disgust. And thus we see that in the beginning all appear alike. But when the heat is on, some come forth and give of their all, while others fail to pop and become a chaff to be discarded and forgotten. So, there's heat in the world. As we think about 9/11, I don't even like the anniversary, the words anniversary of 9/11, because it's not something to celebrate, but it is something to remember with prayer. And I think always these things are a chance for us to come back and take personal responsibility for what we're bringing. What am I bringing to the world? What consciousness am I bringing? Because the law is operating upon every thought, every vibration, everything alike. Our opportunity is to bring our game. Our opportunity is to bring our best. Our opportunity is to continue to come back and pull out those thorns in order to come back and be that great popcorn, that great light that is operating consciously upon a law now and forevermore. You with me?
Yes.
Does the law work?
Yes.
There's one life.
One life.
That life is God.
That life is God.
It's perfect and whole and complete.
It's perfect and whole and complete.
And guess what?
Guess what?
That's my life.
That's my life.
I'm remembering that. I'm living from that. I'm taking responsibility for myself and knowing that.
Taking
Responsibility for myself and knowing that. And I'm doing it today. I am that. Right now. And forevermore. And so it is.
So it is.
Yes.
Yes.
So